Update. My husband thinks I baby trapped him despite the baby being planned. Please help. Original post. My husband, male 35, and I, female 32, have been married for 7 years. He lived next door, and we just clicked. It was like a fairy tale. One thing I have always thought made our marriage so strong was our friendship with each other and our trust in one another, although now my husband seems to think otherwise. Recently, my husband found out that his friend Jeff, male 34, has been baby trapped. Basically, Jeff's wife, female 32, stopped taking the pill and fell pregnant a few months into their relationship. It only came clean after the wedding. Jeff came from a very conservative family which his wife knew, and so he felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy. Unfortunately, he also now feels obligated to stay, regardless of the clearly messed up dynamic, because he feels that he has made a vow and will stick by his wife and child. My husband, for some reason, has been really rattled by this. I'm currently 4 months pregnant with our first, but my husband asked me yesterday if I was trying to baby trap him. I first laughed because I honestly thought it was a joke. He was dead serious. I doubled down, so I told him that we have already been married for 7 years, and a baby was not going to trap him any more than he already is. My husband did not like that answer and said that there was no time limit on baby trapping, and that my intentions were clearly not pure, given how I was acting as if his concerns were a joke. He said he had trusted me in the past, but me laughing in his face gave him no reason to trust me now. I did not really know what he wanted or how I was meant to respond. And I said we should talk about this in the morning. Today, I woke up and my husband was gone, but I did have a nasty text from his brother, male 28, saying that I had forced my husband into this pregnancy, despite it having been a joint decision. My husband is missing in action and not responding to calls or texts, and now I am wondering how on earth to go forward. Any advice is appreciated. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Weird take, but I think is getting cold feet on a pregnancy, and this is his way to save face. Same. This is his way to get out, without him looking like a total a-hat for abandoning a pregnant woman. He can't really get out of it though. That's what makes it so bizarre. The only thing he can get out of is the marriage with divorce. Honestly, OP should just send him and his brother and anyone else this post. He knows it was planned, so I don't know what's going through his head. I'd also text OP's husband that if he's so trapped by the marriage and desperate to hurt her mid-pregnancy, he can get a divorce. But he knows as well as she does that they had a good relationship and plan a baby together. So either he confesses what's made him go so loopy and mental over it suddenly, or he gets out of her life, bars whatever visitations a court tells him he's allowed. She should also message his pal who was really baby-trapped and explain the situation and ask that friend to go talk to him because he obviously gotten in the husband's head. If they actually had a good relationship and he really did want a kid, I imagine that will be a shock because right now, she's probably begging and doing the opposite to get him to come back. If he doesn't, I almost feel like he's done something bad on his side that warrants the overreaction out the blue and has just taken this idea from his friend's situation. The amount of stress sitting and alone and pregnant with no idea what your husband is doing or why, or if he will even come back, must be awful. Sounds like this friend was talking into your husband's ear. Like it happened to him, it has to be happening to husband too. Misery loves company. His friend would hate to have a friend who is actually happy in their relationship and a planned pregnancy, to the point he is trying to make OP's husband believe he's in the same situation. Has he always been a moron or is this new? I'd ask if he's cheating or something, if he hasn't always been this stupid, because there is something shady in his behavior. I'm sorry. Hopefully the baby gets his brains from you. I think the baby took them from the dad, because she still has hers. LMAO. And now for the update. I wanted to quickly update everyone who was kind enough to give me some advice. I didn't respond to anyone because my post was locked quite quickly. But I have read every single comment and message, and I'm very grateful. I realized while I was reading the comments that everyone was right. I wasn't angry enough. My husband had insulted me and our marriage in a very hurtful way, and it just didn't really register for a while. I was so confused and upset that it didn't occur to me to be angry, but I think everything just needed to sink in. In the meantime, I called my best friend, female 31, who has been such a rock in my life. She came over with some chocolate and was furious when she heard. She called her husband, male 34, to the house after I had gotten everything out of my system. He's a family lawyer, and he said that he would happily represent me if I wanted to go through with a divorce. This man is a saint, and I will draw up divorce papers on Monday. My mother-in-law, female 66, showed up with my husband in a car not long after my best friend's husband arrived, and she practically dragged him to the door. My mother-in-law said that he had showed up at theirs late last night, saying that he was certain that I was using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, my mother-in-law is a smart woman and absolutely tore him a new one before dragging him to the house today to apologize. My worm of a husband did not look at me in the eye the entire time, but said that he was scared about becoming a dad and projected his fears onto me. He said he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of commitment, but he will step up, as if he is some kind of hero. I roll. I called him a coward and told him that he should stay with his parents until I am ready to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything about the divorce papers because I didn't know what his reaction would be, but he will find out soon enough. I also showed my mother-in-law the text from my brother-in-law, and her face was like a storm cloud. I don't know what will happen there, but I'm sure it will be bad. For now, I am exhausted and just want to curl up and cry. My best friend has said she'll spend the night with me and we can watch silly movies. I have also made an appointment with a therapist for next week, but for now, I just need to rest. I'm exhausted and devastated that my marriage has come crumbling down. Sorry for the sad ending, everyone. Props to your mother-in-law for telling off her son. If this does go to divorce, stay in contact with her if you can. Having an ally and a grandparent is very helpful. It's so refreshing to see a mother-in-law standing up for the right thing, instead of cuddling and supporting her son when he's running away from his responsibilities and hurting his wife. That was beautiful. I can easily imagine her fury when she found out why he ran away. He might be a grown man, at least on paper, but she still yelled at him like he was 5, using his full name at all, that's for sure. And I would have loved to see her drag him by the ear to the car, and then out of the car while mumbling angrily about how disappointed she is in him. He most definitely also got the stare that only a mom can give her kid when she's embarrassed about how they have been behaving. Once he sees those divorce papers, there will be no doubt in his mind you definitely don't want to baby trap him. Doesn't make sense. Gets married then accuses wife of entrapment. What? Some people view marriage as a temporary thing from the get-go. Your husband is disgusting, and I'm glad your mother-in-law had enough sense to see us being a piece of trash. Kudos for filing for divorce. You don't want to be with someone who would treat you this way, after you both plan to have this baby. You're married and made a decision together, and I was trying to wriggle out of it. Gross. Worm indeed. Next story. My 19 male girlfriend broke up with me and told me she doesn't want to be our daughter's mom anymore. The mother of my child, who had been my girlfriend for over 3 years until last night, broke up with me and told me she doesn't want to be a mom right now. I'm 19 and in my sophomore year of college. She's about to turn 18 and in her senior year of high school. We had been together for over 3 years, since we were in high school together. She got pregnant toward the end of my senior year and our daughter just turned 1 year old. The pregnancy wasn't planned. We were careful, but not careful enough, and it happened. I was willing to support any decision she wanted to make. We talked through all the options together and she wasn't forced by anyone to keep the baby, but I told her I would be involved and support that if it's what she ultimately decided to do. She said she already started to grow attached to the baby and love it early in the pregnancy, and couldn't terminate. Neither of us were very comfortable with adoption. So she decided to keep it and I adjusted to the idea of becoming a dad at 18 years old. I had been accepted to another college a state away, but changed my plans after this happened and decided to go to an in-state school within driving distance of where we live. I live at home with my parents and commute to school. I'm only going to college part-time and will most likely graduate in 6 years instead of 4. I had plans to go full-time, out of state, and had much bigger goals for what I would do after that. I also have a job, and all of that income goes to supporting our child. I'm okay with that. This is my responsibility, and I love my daughter. I don't have a ton of free time, but we do share custody and our daughter splits her time about 50-50 now, between both of our family's houses. She used to have her more often because she was so little, but I still went over to her parents to help and to see my child all the time. My girlfriend is a loving mom, or always seemed like she was. I know it's been hard for her in many aspects, but I thought she loved our daughter as much as I do. I couldn't imagine saying I don't want to be her parent anymore. There are moments when I still can't believe this is my life, and there are times where I wish I had some more freedom, but I still wouldn't change it. She told me last night that she's been thinking about it for a while. She's applying to some colleges further from home and eventually wants to go study abroad. This isn't what she wants for her life, and she's not ready to be a parent now. She told me I'm much better at it than she is, and she feels like a fraud. She said she wants to figure out what needs to be done legally to give me full custody of our daughter, as we don't have any sort of legal custody agreement right now. She also suggested that maybe it's good to start transitioning our daughter to eventually live full-time with me starting right now. She wants to have her last time, but thinks it won't be right to do it suddenly. I'm just sort of in shock, blown away by this really. I can't believe she would do this. It's not about me having to care for our daughter full-time or anything related to me not wanting that. I'm just so angry and almost disgusted at the thought that she could just decide she really eventually wants nothing to do with her own child. She made it clear that she doesn't want to be her mom once she leaves here. I'm trying not to explode. Maybe she was just feeling that way and will change her mind. Now for the top advice. Listen, man. You need to go through the courts and get her to either give you custody or sign away her parental rights completely. You cannot have her popping up randomly deciding to be a mom again. I read way too many stories here on Reddit where they came back years later, even though they did sign away their parental rights, saying BS like, I want a relationship with my son/daughter now. Nope. You just know that's what is going to happen anyway. The ex-girlfriend will go off and live her life carefree, while Opie and the poor child go through the toughest years of child raising together. Then, she'll come back when the kid is more grown and easier to care for and will want a relationship. And since the child was so young when mom left, they won't remember the trauma of being left and will want the relationship with a mom who is now so much cooler than dad because she has cash and free time and no care in the world. Yep. Opie is almost better off getting full custody with child support rather than her terminating rights, because at least she'll have to contribute financially. In reality, the mom can come back either way to try to have a relationship. You might think what I'm about to say is brutal/harsh, but if she goes through with this, you need to get child support. You should talk to your parents about this, as they may be able to help you. I would go as far as talking to her parents and requesting that they pony up if she doesn't. You might need to eventually get a lawyer. She will eventually need a job to live, so regardless, this will become relevant eventually. You sound very empathetic and kind, but she's being very selfish. She's young, so I get it, but she's also a mom. You need to make sure. Ask yourself 2 questions. 1. What would your child think of her mother when she finds out she took a break one day? 2. What will your daughter think of you if you didn't do everything you could to ensure you had the resources to take care of her? Imagine if your parents did these things to you. Imagine your mom and dad doing this to you. Last story. I told my fiancé that I don't really want to marry her anymore. My 26 male, fiancé Sarah 24 female, and I are set to get married in 3 months. We were visiting a botanical garden yesterday when Sarah pointed out a flower called Arabian jasmine, a little white flower with a nice scent. She said that her cousin Stephanie had those at her wedding. I asked if it was the same Stephanie that would be in attendance with her husband at our wedding, and she said it was. Sarah and Stephanie are apparently pretty close, and she started telling me about Stephanie and her husband. At one point, she told me that Stephanie had actually cheated on her husband twice before they got married, and that the second time was a couple of months before the actual wedding. Her husband never found out. I asked her why she never told Stephanie's husband what happened, and she responded by saying that it wasn't her circus, wasn't her monkeys, and that is not that big of a deal anyway since they weren't married at a time. I've been thinking about what she said ever since. I consider cheating the ultimate and worst betrayal in a relationship. But clearly my fiancé doesn't think so, since she said her cousin cheating wasn't that big of a deal since they weren't married. Would this mean that she thinks cheating on me right now wouldn't be that big of a deal since we aren't married yet? As a man, if I got cheated on by my partner, I hope someone who knew about it would tell me. I would heavily judge anyone who knew about it. Didn't tell me, let me go on marry the person that cheated on me and attended my wedding as if nothing was wrong, like my fiancé did to her cousin's husband. So a couple hours ago, I texted my fiancé, I'm not sure if I can go forward with getting married. Let's talk in person later tonight. She's been blowing up my phone with texts and missed calls ever since. I'm just going to tell her what I've said in this post when I see her. How are you planning to tell the cousin's husband that she cheated on him? You should definitely treat others the way you want to be treated. That poor man deserves to know his wife has zero integrity, her loyalty. I bet if Stephanie's then fiancé had cheated on her twice before the wedding, that she would have gone nuclear scorched earth on him. That definitely would not have been no big deal. Opie, you're right to question Sarah's morality. She could possibly do the same as Stephanie and say it's no big deal since you aren't married yet. Yep, Sarah and Stephanie both lied freely to her husband. They will both lie freely to Opie. Sarah probably encouraged Stephanie's cheating. Otherwise, Stephanie would never have told her about it. Stephanie will definitely be encouraging Sarah to cheat. Very high probability Sarah's cheating already. What are people's holier-than-thou obsessions with busting other people? It's up to her whether or not she wants to risk her relationship with her cousin by ratting her out. And if she doesn't want to, that's her choice. There's no moral imperative here that she has to make sure her cousin's husband has to know. People need to learn how to mind their own houses and not worry about what everybody else is doing. Sounds like the perspective of a cheater. I respectfully disagree. No one deserves to be cheated on. Someone has been cheated on has a right to know that their relationship is a lie, so they can decide for themselves whether or not they want to stay. Wouldn't you want to know if your partner cheated? You have the right to disagree with me on this, but I have the right to end our relationship on the basis of that disagreement.